Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. And on today's show, we delve into the murky issue of public domains. Recently, the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse came under the public domain copyright. We saw a little video of a horror movie version of that version of Mickey Mouse. But what happens when Superman, Batman, Joker and Wonder Woman come under the public domain? And is there anything that Warner Brothers can do to stop it becoming a public domain? We'll delve into it via a Variety article very, very shortly. And the Batman 2 goes into production in August and starts shooting. But can it keep its 2025 release date? We'll get into it. And we'll also get into the fact that James Gunn and Peter Safran decided to launch their DC Universe via the Flash movie. Will that confuse fans? We'll get into that as well. But first of all, the murky issue of public domain has reared its ugly head with the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse coming under the public domain copyright. And what happens to Superman, Batman and Joker and Wonder Woman when the same happens to them? Now, I don't know nearly enough, if anything, about this public domain situation. So I thought in today's show it would be interesting if we educated ourselves. Because here on Movies TV Mad, we don't pretend we fucking know it all. I don't know everything. I love these characters, I love film, I love TV, I love entertainment, but I don't know everything, and that's okay. A sad fact of Hollywood is that while superheroes never truly die, all copyrights do. On Jan the 1st, Disney lost control of Steamboat Willie, and within 24 hours, 2 horror comedies starring Mickey Mouse were announced. The DC characters are the next major explorations looming on the horizon. Superman Lois Lane will enter the public domain in 2034, followed by Batman in 2035, the Joker in 2036, and Wonder Woman in 2037. Chris Sims, a comic book author and Batman expert, expects a flood of unauthorized Batman comics to hit the stands as soon as the copyright expires. But could this be good for those characters, talented fans doing versions of these characters? I think this is actually a good thing. Not for DC, not for Warner Brothers, but for us, the fans. There's going to be hundreds of them, he says. They're going to have them ready to go. Movie producers will also be able to make their own versions, much as they already do with public domain characters like Dracula and Robin Hood. Though in the beginning they will have to stick to the original version of the characters. So this is what I kind of guessed was the issue here. So if you, basically, Superman and Lois, they'll have to stick with the original versions of those characters. So even if you want to modernize Lois Lane, you really couldn't. Would you have to stick to a 1938 kind of premise of Superman and Lois? They're going to be the first DC characters to come under the public domain. Me as a writer and an actor, and and someone who went to film school, this is very, very exciting. I think we should all start working on our own Superman and Lois Lane stories as from now, and even Batman, who comes out a year later. I think this is an exciting situation. You get Batman, but you don't get Robin, Sims says. That's interesting. You get Superman, but you don't get Kryptonite. Now, again, that's not really a big deal. You just have to tell a Superman story without Kryptonite. Maybe you could create another weakness. I'm not sure within the public domain if you could do that. I'm going to really have to look into this. The initial Superman could only leap, not fly. Those characteristics are going to fall into the public domain one by one, says Amanda Shriver, media and entertainment lawyer at Morse. This is interesting. So your Superman, if I write a Superman comic or story or movie, he can't fly. He can only leap from skyscraper to skyscraper. And even though that's disappointing, you could actually make a good, cheap movie with Superman jumping from skyscraper to skyscraper. I think I could come up with some really interesting things. Again, I'm not sure if we could give him new powers. Very interesting. DC has been preparing for this for years. At a press event in 2023, CEO James Gunn noted that the next Superman film will introduce characters from The Authority, a comic series that launched in 1999, in part because Superman copyright is about to expire. Now, this is interesting. Jay Cogan, DC's Deputy General Counsel, laid out a strategy to protect characters that fall into the public domain in a 2001 article. Since only the older versions lose protection, he urged keep them fresh and up to date. In other words, keep on changing them so losing the original versions doesn't matter. But what if I come up with I think the original version of Superman is probably better than any versions that have been modernized anyway. You get to power him down. You get to tell a very intellectual story with nuance. So I don't think this is a bad thing. Whatever they do, me and you could make a great Superman movie. Let's team up. Subscribers of Movies TV Mad, let's team up and make a great Superman movie or TV show where he jumps from skyscraper to skyscraper. You couldn't use Lex Luthor either, I don't think, but can you create new characters? Very interesting. Now, what's interesting is, at first there was no Perry Wyatt. Originally, he was called George Taylor. There wasn't originally a Jimmy Olsen. These are things you would have to be very, very careful about. But you could still write and create a great movie within these parameters. By gradually changing the literary and visual characteristics of a character over time, a character owner can keep whatever the then current image of the character is as the de facto standard in the public consensus, he wrote. But as I said, it doesn't matter if they change it. Yeah, you can't use the new things, but you can use the things that are under the public domain. You can use the name Superman. You can use the name Clark Kent. You can use the name Lois Lane. You've still got a lot of things to work with. I don't think you could use the Daily Planet, but there's ways around these things. The company has done a good job of updating Superman, argues Stephen Bleer, an IP lawyer at Levi's, Brisbonis, Biscard and Smith. The public's perception is the contemporary Superman, it's distinctive, he says. That gives them a lot of protection. Another tactic, Manhattan high level of guilty control. The public should be conditioned to view any works from unrelated parties featuring a trademark owner's characters as second-rate knockoffs, Coogan wrote. But what if I can raise the money? What if I can actually make a great Superman movie where he leaps from skyscraper to skyscraper, even though he can't fly? And maybe that would hurt my story. If I tell a good story and I can get good funding, I could still do something very special. So I think, no matter what they try with newer versions, it doesn't mean they will succeed. So yeah, they're trying to make it look like, they could say whatever we do would be inferior, but not necessarily. Coogan also suggested that trademarks could be used to block the use of a character's name, image and slogan even after copyright expires. Yeah, it's obvious they're going to try every trick in the book, but it's going to be very, very difficult for them. But they are going to try to stop this because this is a lot more serious than the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse coming under the public domain situation. Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker, Batman, these characters are worth billions to to Warner Brothers. So it's not a straight road yet, but it is interesting. But trademark is not a cloak of immunity, argues Jennifer Jenkins, director of Duke's Center for the Study of the Public Domain. That only prevents use that are likely to cause consumer confusion about source or sponsorship, she says. That's interesting. In other words, the characters' names should be fair game as long as it's clear that the depiction is not coming from DC. So basically, I could have an official Superman movie based on the original version of Superman, as long as I say this is nothing to do with DC Comics. That doesn't hurt me. Because people are fed up of modern day comics anyway, and modern day movies. What if I create an interesting version of Superman that leaps from skyscraper to skyscraper? You could still create a Superman horror movie or a Batman horror movie, says Jonathan Steinsberg. An IP attorney at Kicks, you just need to be careful about how you advertise it and how you use the image of Superman in a branding sense. In other words, as long as I use the design of the version of Superman that's under public domain, I can do it. DC has done a careful job of tying the characters to itself by trademarking the terms of Man of Steel and Caped Crusader, as well as Superman's S and Batman's logo. The bat symbol is a very strong mark, Schreier says. That is going to limit what subsequent creators can do. So maybe I can't use the Batman logo or the Superman logo. Again, I can get creative. But can I create a new logo for Superman that's different? Can I create a smaller S shield? Can I do something? Can I put a line down the S so it looks slightly different? I think that I could. So you can get creative here. People will make a run at these characters because there's money to be made, says Mark Waid, a comic book author and historian best known for his work on DC Comics. Titles like Superman Birthright or how about Superman vs. Godzilla? It's a grey area, but this town works on the speed of capitalism, right? That's how we work. Now, let me just ask you a question, right? Listen to this, right? Robin Hood, according to this article, is under a public domain. Does that mean I could do a Superman and Robin Hood movie? As long as the Superman is from the version of the character under public domain. Sims believes more superhero comics will be a good thing, but the idea that there will be a Superman renaissance is oversold, he says. It's gonna come down to execution. No shit, Sherlock, Sims says. There's one company that's used to doing it. Now, this is very interesting if you're a Snyder fan, for example. When listen to me. When this version of Superman comes under public domain, Snyder could actually make a Superman movie where he jumps from skyscraper to skyscraper, right? See, this is interesting for directors within the industry. Rebel directors like Snyder could get back into the Superman and Batman and Lois Lane business. Steinsberg says nothing would keep Snyder from making a non-Warner film featuring the DC Triker. Zack Snyder could reshoot it and make his own new iteration of it, he says. You just need to be careful. For example, he definitely couldn't call it Justice League. He'd have to call it something else. But you see, he could continue his story by changing a few things. It's very, very interesting. So this is a very, very informative article, and I hope it helped to inform you of the public domain situation. What's my takeaway from this? Well, now I know a bit more of it, I'm going to write a Superman story based on the original Superman. I'm going to have to look at the details of those original stories and see exactly what comes in under public domain and try and create something here. I will attempt to write a script and then I'll look at Batman and how he comes under the public domain. I could do a Superman and Batman movie, right? Using the elements that are under, public domain. So this is going to become very interesting because no matter what they say here, if you're smart and you're clever and you change the things that need changing, you could do something very special with these DC characters as long as you stay within the parameters of the copyright laws. So this is something that I'm going to be looking into. And if you are a creative person, you should look into this too. This is a good thing, everyone, Being able to write your own comic books about your favourite characters, it's a good thing. He said there's lots of money to be made, right? They said in this article there's lots of money to be made. I don't give a shit about money. I care about these characters. In the past few years, these characters within comics and movies have been shat upon, right? And even the vision of Snyder being taken away from us. This is a way where the public can finally take control of their favourite characters. Everything has delayed the Hollywood machine. In the upcoming year, there's so many delays because of the writer strikes and the actor strikes that, of course, have been resolved now. So can the Batman 2 keep its release date? It goes into production in August, right? So let's look at how long the average modern day movie takes to shoot, right? So you're looking from around 3 to 6 months. It's very rare for a movie to take 6 months to shoot these days, but I think, and I can't remember the time span for the original The Batman movie directed by Matt Reeves. He takes longer to write his scripts and shoot his movies than everybody else because he's more of a perfectionist. So I think we could go at least a 5.5 month shoot, maybe a 4-month shoot for the Batman 2. So you're looking at August, September, October, November, December. Look, the worst case scenario here, it finishes shooting January of next year, February of next year. Best case, probably November or December of this year. So then you're talking about, let's say worst case scenario, March, April, May, June, July, August. It's going to take a long time, right? Because let's look logically, right? It releases February. I don't even know. I think it releases October of next year at the moment, right? So I'm losing myself a bit here, right? So it finishes shooting February of next year. Let's just say that's the case. So that means they've got March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, they've got about 8 months. They've got about 8 months to finish this movie. If you know anything about making a movie, I don't think that's possible. If he wants to make the movie the way he wants to make it, I don't believe that there's any way for this movie to release next year. Or you'd have to look at delaying it till like December of 2025 or something. I just can't see it. So the reason I'm talking about this, because they were announcing yesterday that production starts this August, which is very, very exciting. My view on all of this is, even though it will be frustrating if the movie is, the release date of the movie is delayed, I'd rather a delay than, get a substandard movie. And there's no way that Matt Reeves would rush to make this movie and finish this movie. He's going to take the time that he needs. And I know that a lot of you will be frustrated, as I will be, because I'm really looking forward to this movie. But we are going to see the Penguin series from Matt's universe this year, which of course is very, very exciting. If we have to wait till 2026 to see the Batman 2, then I think, and I think, by the way, that's what's going to happen in the end. Again, being a content creator, I'm wrong with a lot of my takes, but I'm very comfortable with that because I don't have an ego. So when people bring up things that I've got wrong in the past, that's fine. That's okay. That's why I'm here. You can see my face. I'm not hiding. I'd rather be someone who shows you who I am, puts myself out there, tells you what I think. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I just conceivably, and it's a pure basis of mathematics, I don't see how this movie is ready to go for its date of 2025. I just don't see it. So if the Batman isn't released in 2025, what happens? Well, then you're talking about 2026. You've got the Joker movie this year. You've got Creature Commandos on streaming, and you've got the Penguin series on streaming, right? That's not bad. You've got Superman and Lois, the 4th and final season coming out. So it's pretty stacked for DC still. Not cinematically, you've just got Joker 2, but that's still good, right? Then next year, you've got Superman Legacy, a huge year. They're releasing a Superman movie. That's all right. You don't need to stack cinemas with 4 or 5, DC or Marvel movies a year. We've noticed recently that hasn't worked for either company anyway. So you've got Superman Legacy next year, then in 2026 you get the Batman 2. I think that's okay. I don't think that's a disaster, but I want you all to prepare for the fact that maybe the Batman 2 won't be releasing in 2025. Now, as I say, these things can't be helped. This is not Matt Reeves' fault. This is not James Gunn's or Peter Safran's fault. This is just, unfortunately, the situation. Now, the cinematographer who did the first movie, who did it wonderfully, was being asked if he'd like to do a sequel. He said, with the way Hollywood works, he doesn't know what's going on right now, but of course he'd love to be involved with Matt Reeves and the sequel. So we'll have to wait and see if there's a delay, but I just can't see the Batman 2 releasing next year. James Gunn and Peter Safran, the co-CEOs of DC Studios, were recently asked this question. Is there a worry audiences might be confused with yet another DC reboot? Gunn, we have a lot to prove. It's going to be up to us to show the audience what our universe is, how this is connected, and to clearly demonstrate what is the DCU and what is Elseworlds, and to move like that going forward. So it's going to take some time. But time, James, is something you don't have, because if you launch Superman Legacy and people are still confused after they see the movie, that's a problem. So if you talk about it taking time from now till the release of Superman Legacy, that's fine. But you can't be confused after you come out that movie. Safran, it's going to take some sort of explanation, but we're very confident that by the time Superman Legacy comes out, that people will understand what the DCU is. Safran actually has a better command of this. He's confident that by the time Superman Legacy is released, that people will understand. Now, obviously, we are getting Creature Commandos, which may attempt to try and explain the differences between the DCEU, DCU, and Elseworlds. Now, to me and you, it's pretty obvious, right? DC Universe, the new DC Universe from Gunn and Safran, is a universe born out from the old DCEU, from the Flash movie, because Barry went back to save his mother. When he came back, a new universe was created, which is DC Universe. In DC Universe, there will be many, many new versions of these characters played by different actors. DC Elseworlds is divorced from the DCU. It's not part of the arc. It's not part of that universe. They're Elseworlds. So to us, it's pretty simple. But for the normies, for the mainstream audience, it's going to be confusing. There's no question about that. Then you have to ask the serious question. Why couldn't they just allow the DCEU to finish naturally? Then they could have had Cavill at the end of the Flash movie and Gal Gadot at the end of the Flash movie. That franchise finishes at the end of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Then they say, hey, we've got the DCU, a brand new universe. It's nothing to do with anything else. By doing it this way, they've made their lives a lot more harder. And I don't understand for the life of me why they've done this, right? It could have been a lot more simpler if they just went, hey, we got a brand new DC universe. It's divorced from anything else. And the Batman and Joker are part of DC Elseworlds. It's simple then. It's not that difficult. This way, you have to keep on explaining things. It's difficult. And it's going to be a huge challenge to, it's a bold statement from Peter Safran to say, we're hoping and confident that by the time Superman Legacy is released, people will understand the situation. Well, they can only understand that situation if they see it within kind of the media put out there. And the only media for DC Universe, as far as I know, from now till the time Superman Legacy is released, is Creature Commandos. I think that's a 5 or 6 episode animated series. That is the launch pad for James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC Universe. So, as I say, you and I, the nerds who are on the internet all the time, the diehards, we understand. I think we have a responsibility to try and explain it to everyone else. But it's not easy, because then if people don't understand what's going on, they're not going to be motivated to go to the cinema and watch the movie. And this is why it's very important people get the situation before they go and see Superman Legacy. Then there's another problem. Like, is everyone going to be interested in seeing Creature Commandos? Will normies watch Creature Commandos? That's another situation here. We only have to wait. Well, we're really going to have to wait and see about that. But, HBO Max isn't available to every country around the world. It's not like Netflix that's available in every single country, mostly around the world. HBO Max still isn't available here in Cyprus, nor is D+, by the way. And there's many little countries like this. And, every country counts in terms of box office, right? So you're using Creature Commandos to say, we've got a new universe, this is the launch pad of it. Now, I know in the UK, for example, there's no HBO Max because of the complicated contracts that Sky TV have with HBO and Warner Brothers. So what happens is, when Peacemaker was released, it came to Sky Atlantic, which is where they put all the HBO stuff. And so this is going to be the same thing, I think, with Creature Commandos. I'm assuming it will land maybe on Amazon or Sky TV again. That's going to be very, very interesting. There's another problem with Creature Commandos, like with the Penguin, because I don't have HBO Max, or I don't have Max as they changed the name now, as that makes a fucking difference to people subscribing to it or not. Lunacy. But I'm going to get spoilers because I'm on the internet all the time. I have to be on the internet all the time because I like to be clued up on what's going on around the world and what's going on around in entertainment, especially DC, Doctor Who, and my movies, my favourite movies and TV shows and all of that. I can't be off the internet. And because I won't have, I won't be able to watch it when you people in the States will watch it, it's a problem. I won't be able to review the episodes too much after you've seen them. That will hurt my views as well as my experience as a fan. And this is the problem here. So I don't know who's going to have Creature Commandos outside of America. So that's going to be a thing as well. But they have given themselves a huge challenge here in terms of explaining to everyone what DC Universe is. And it is basically a universe born out of the DCEU thanks to what happened within the Flash movie. And as I have already said, they could have saved themselves the challenge of having to keep on explaining this by just starting again. Like, Batman 89 doesn't continue from Batman 66. It's a brand new universe. And, like Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin are part of that universe, right? But they're not that intertwined, so it didn't really matter, right? Like Superman the movie had nothing to do with the George Reeves show, right? They didn't use an episode of the George Reeves show to enter, a new universe of Superman. Like Superman Returns continues from Superman 2. Even that was a bit confusing for mainstream audiences. Something as simple as that confused audiences, and that's why it hurt the box office to that movie. Man of Steel was set in a brand new universe. It was simple. It nearly made 700 million. Not bad, right? Not for Warner Brothers, but it wasn't bad if you look at it. But, by doing it the way Gunn and Safran are doing it, they're just giving themselves a headache. And I really am confused what the mentality around this was. Well, I'm not actually that confused because, for example, he wants to use some of the actors from the original DCEU, I'm assuming. I also think there is a plan here. There is a method to the madness. Don't discount that Henry Cavill and Brandon Routh could appear in Superman Legacy as their own versions of Superman. Don't discount that. Superman Legacy. Now, I've predicted this before, and he did hint about talking to Henry Cavill in the past as well, after he told him he wouldn't be his Superman. So James Gunn could have something up his sleeve here. And maybe that's another reason why he wanted to kind of take DC Universe and, born it out of the DCEU. But even then, you don't really need to do this. And all you're doing is confusing the people you need to come in to watch your movie. But it's going to be interesting because I think if Superman Legacy is such a great movie, none of that will actually matter.